Hello and welcome, dear viewers, to a new edition of the Daily Debate. I'm your host for tonight, Mohammed Abdirrahim. And tonight we'll be talking about Egypt's participation in the G20 summit in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, that came in light of Egypt's commitment to deliver its fair share of action as part of global action to address human challenges. Egypt's participation in Rio highlighted its growing international role, invited by His Excellency Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. His Excellency President Sisi represented Egypt at the summit, marking the country's fourth attendance after previous invitations in 2016, 2019 and 2023. We'll be talking about everything that happened there and focusing on Egypt's participation at the G20 summit in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. But first, this top story that we have for tonight, as President Sisi heads to Copenhagen, Denmark, on Thursday, beginning of a European tour that also includes the Kingdom of Norway and the Republic of Ireland, as part of enhancing cooperation and coordination between Egypt and European countries. The official spokesman for the Presidency of the Republic stated that during his visit to the Kingdom of Denmark, President Sisi will hold meetings with His Majesty, the King of Denmark, the Prime Minister and the Speaker of the Danish Parliament. He will also participate in a number of economic events and meetings that will culminate in the signing of the Strategic Partnership Declaration between the two countries, in addition to a number of memoranda of understanding in various areas of cooperation. The official spokesman for the presidency added that the President will then head to Oslo, the capital of the Kingdom of Norway, on an official visit where he will hold meetings with His Majesty the King of Norway, the Prime Minister and the Speaker of and members of the Norwegian Parliament. He will also hold meetings with the heads of a number of Norwegian companies operating in Egypt and will witness the signing of a number of cooperation agreements between the two countries. Ambassador Mohammed Al-Shenawi, the official spokesman, also explained that Mr. President will head to Dublin, the capital of the Republic of Ireland, at the end of his European tour, where he will hold meetings with both the President of the Republic of Ireland and the Irish Prime Minister to discuss the available opportunities to enhance cooperation between the two countries and coordinate positions on international issues and crises of common interest. Well, that was our top story for tonight, and we are very happy to discuss the events of the G20 summit and Egypt's participation there with our dear distinguished guest, Dr. Nevin Nakhla, the Professor of Strategic Management at AAST, the Arab Academy of Maritime and Science and Technology. A very good evening to you, Dr. Nevin. As always, a great pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you so much. Good evening to you and to all the viewers.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nevin. As always, allow us, please, first to watch a report about our main topic for tonight, and then we'll come back and start our discussion. Please stay with us, Dr. Nevin, dear viewers.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi participated in the G20 summit meetings, Rio de Janeiro 2024, upon an invitation by Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. Egypt's participation marks its fourth engagement in G20 summits, building upon its prior involvement in the 2016 summit held under China's presidency, the 2019 summit convened by Japan, and the 2023 summit hosted by India. These engagements demonstrate the growing acknowledgement of Egypt's international stature and its pivotal role regionally. The summit addressed a multitude of priority issues for developing countries, primarily social inclusion, poverty and hunger eradication, reforms of global governance institutions and energy transition within the framework of sustainable development. President al-Sisi delivered Egypt's speeches during the summit sessions, showcasing Egypt's development efforts and the challenges faced by developing countries in their endeavors to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly amid the ongoing international political and economic fluctuations. The head of state outlined Egypt's vision regarding the critical importance of solidarity and enhancing cooperation to address these challenges. Moreover, President el-Sisi's speeches focused on regional developments, primarily the crisis emanating from escalation in Palestine and Lebanon, in addition to Egypt's efforts to restore stability in the Middle East. The summit officially launched the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty, an international alliance initiated by Brazil during its G20 presidency. It aims to reinforce social inclusion and eliminate poverty and hunger by mobilizing financial and knowledge resources to accelerate global efforts to combat poverty and hunger, which is a key sustainable development goal. Additionally, President el-Sisi met with several world leaders on the sidelines of the summit and discussed ways to foster closer bilateral relations, mechanisms to strengthen international cooperation, to realize the Sustainable Development Goals and efforts to restore regional peace and security, to fulfill the aspirations of the peoples for prosperity and development.
Welcome back, dear viewers. Thanks, Manel Alibieri and Rasha Abdelhamid for this report. Back here with Dr. Nevin Nakhla, the Professor of Strategic Management at AAST. So, Dr. Nevin, President el-Sisi at the G20 commended the outstanding organization of the summit and praised Brazil's keenness on including the priorities of the developing countries in the summit's agenda, primarily through the launch of the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty. What can you tell us about this very important initiative at the G20?
First of all, we are very proud that our beloved President was part of this G20 summit. And as we saw in the report, in the previous report, he is also making sure of a lot of bilateral relationship in Europe and with all the countries, the main economical countries that attended the G20 and participated in the G20. The new initiative is very important to make sure that the Sustainable Development Goals are achieved before 2030. And the new initiative, the new alliance, will take place from the beginning of 2025 till 2030 to eradicate poverty and hunger, which are number 1 and 2 of the Sustainable Development SDGs, the United Nations, the United Nations. And we saw reports. I was just attending the African Economic Forum in Botswana last week, and we had the researchers, who applied for researchers were 800 researchers, but 29 researchers were displayed. And one of the very important research was about hunger and poverty. And the numbers and the percentages where we're going to was scary. So for the G20 to acknowledge this important, very important 1 and 2 of the SDGs, to tackle them with this alliance, it means a lot. This alliance is partnership between 81 countries around the world, 9 NGOs and 26 organizations, and a lot of private and international bodies and organizations. They get all together, and there is a strategic plan to tackle the hunger and the poverty. They were talking about school food for school children. They were talking about a lot of details, how to tackle, and a lot of strategies, how to tackle the poverty and the hunger in the world, and to make sure that this is completely eliminated before 2030, the deadline of the SDGs from the United Nations. Also, we saw that they were talking very strategically on what are the good initiatives that happened around the world, and how to copy it, and how to work on it and enhance it. So this alliance is a great thing, because we know that G20 is the big economies of the world.
Sure.
So also the resource allocation for food, how much and who and when, and which countries are priorities and which ages are priorities, the health issues for hunger and poverty like anemia and etc. So this alliance is very human and is very important, and it's a soft what do you say, a soft power for the getting together of everyone and connecting everyone on the same page and on the same cause for our world.
Right. There is a Food Africa gathering here in Egypt.
Yes. Today, for the last 3 days, from the 3rd to the 5th, today is the last day, was at 7 o'clock. I was coming from there.
Tell us about
the Food Africa, the Food Africa conference in Egypt, or fair in Egypt, is something to make us very proud. All the companies, all the NGOs, all the organizations for food were there. We saw also the African pavilion was full of a lot of resources and a lot of good things from our continent. We saw a lot of European people, and Turkish, European, a lot of pavilions from all the world. Thousands and thousands of people. I'm not sure how many people exactly, but thousands of people attended. And of course, if you are going to think of how Egypt is tackling the poverty and the hunger, we are trying to be a hub for logistic for food, and for logistic hub for food and for wheat and for grains. And this is a very pivotal and very important role Egypt is playing.
Right.
Also, if we see today the Food Africa fair, and all these people under one roof with all the giving, and a lot of I was standing with the tomato paste and the sun-dried tomato. I don't want to say names of NGOs, but a lot of NGOs have financed agricultural initiatives and agricultural projects in Upper Egypt. This project of sun-dried tomato is in Dandara, in Ina, and I want to tell you, they do any specification, very high standard, very certified, something to be proud of. A lot of initiatives, a lot of NGOs, it is resource allocation.
It's really good to see Egypt at the heart of all of these efforts, be it with the G20, with its African brothers. Egypt always in the middle, in the heart of such important initiatives. Dr. Nevin, also a very important issue that was discussed at the G20 is the sustainable energy file, and renewable energy file. To what extent this also is important to Egypt and to the globe at the moment, and what can the G20 here do for the sake of mankind in this very important file that helps combat, of course, also global warming, climate change.
Exactly, and also the poverty and the hunger, because if you are talking about renewable energy, if you're talking about clean energy, this is very crucial and very important. So if we combine what happened during the G20 and we combine what Egypt is doing also, we are very ahead in the renewable energy. We saw a lot of initiatives also and a lot of talks about the green and clean energy, a lot of talks about the renewable energy and the future of our continent, the future of our world. We saw that it is not only the technology and the innovation, but also the other sources of energy in different countries. Because like in Egypt we have the solar energy, the sun is very, we have the wind energy. In other countries you have the water energy. So I mean combining under one roof the talks of the future of the world and how the scarce resources of energy, how to be changed into the renewable energy and clean energy. Also reducing the carbon emissions. And we saw in the talks of the G20 about the green houses,
green hydrogen?
Green hydrogen and, the reduction of the
emission of carbon dioxide.
emission, yes. Exactly, from the greenhouses and a lot of other talks. So this is very important, and we see also in Egypt with our Ministry of International Cooperation a lot of investment and a lot of calling for investors in the green and the clean and the renewable energy. And this is also very smart resource allocation of what is beneficial for everyone and what is for our kids, for the sustainable development. We are not ruining our air, we are not ruining our or finishing our air.
Dr. Nevin, Egypt at the G20 stressed the challenges facing developing countries, including aggravation of conflicts. There are many conflicts across many developing countries, many wars, the widening digital gap, the debt crisis that many developing countries are facing, and the failure to meet the official development assistance and climate finance commitment, you know, the reparation file that was talked about here in COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh 2 years ago. So Egypt continues to be a voice for the developing world. How important was that, you know, hearing Egypt's voice there at the G20, and can this, you know, can the voice of the developing world be, yes, it's heard, but can it be adhered to finally, or are we just going to stay to live in this unfair world forever?
Our beloved President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi stressed very much during the G20 about the implementation of the actions for the climate change and the implementation of the finance and what was taken care of during the COP27. Also the Ministry of Economic Development and International Cooperation are taking this file very seriously, and the implementation of initiatives and the implementation of projects for the climate change resolutions and taking care of this file is very important. Also, if we are talking about the voice of Egypt, yes, to represent the developing countries or to represent Africa, the voice of Egypt is very much respected, and we are a role model. Egypt is a very good role model to the world and to our continent of the steps, the serious steps and the serious reforms took in this file of climate change. So the voice is heard and actions are starting, and it was very much negotiated during the G20 summit, and also by implementing and by starting different initiatives and projects on the ground. This is like showing the world how it goes.
Yes. Egypt was a voice for Africa at the G20, where South Africa is also this brotherly, friendly country, a friend of Egypt, of course, South Africa, that great country. So together, Egypt and South Africa, and you're an expert on African affairs. I mean, you've been to much of Africa. Talk to us about how, again, the African voice is being met in such stages.
If I'm talking about Africa, I cannot miss talking about the AFCFTA, which is the African Free Continental Agreement. And this AFCFTA is the future of Africa. And I'm very proud to say that my personal company is the AFCFTA trading company in Egypt. And now we have 5 companies, Egypt, Rwanda, Ghana, Kenya, and South Africa.
Well distributed geographically, by the way.
Yes, and we're looking forward to have, for the 55 countries, a pilot, a champion, a trading company in each country. Our mandate is to facilitate and aggregate intra-African trading. If we talk about, I'm sorry I took you away from the G20 to our continent.
No, I want to hear, we want to hear about this. I mean, we are watched in Africa, by the way. Nile TV has many of its beloved viewers in the African continent watching our English language or French language transmissions.
So the intra-African trading is only 12 to 15%, which is very humble, which is unbelievably...
Yeah, I mean, there's a huge room for improvement.
Of course. So the AFCFTA, this African Free Continental Trade Agreement, is aiming to increase intra-African trading to billions and billions, and to reach more than 70 and 80%, not 12 to 15.
Yes, sorry to interrupt you, but I'd mentioned that I really like the geographical distribution of the 5 countries you mentioned across the continent, but I want to add something. So we have Egypt here, northeast, Kenya, more or less in the middle, but to the east at least. More in the heart is Rwanda, a bit to the south, very south, Ghana in the west, of course. So we need, it's not because I love Morocco, but I do, and we all love all our African brothers, countries. And countries. But you know, if we complete it with Morocco or Senegal or Algeria or something like that,
it will be completed. They take their time to choose the right partner over there, because the mandate of these trading companies is to aggregate to aggregate and facilitate intra-African trading, not only for big factories that they have export managers, but for SMEs, for small, medium enterprises.
And where do you see the percentage going, the 12 to 15% intertrade that you've said is very unsatisfying? Where do you see it possibly going?
It can go to 80–90% easily.
Really?
By the forces that is taking place and by what's happening.
And the time span for that, the potential optimistic time span for that?
Hopefully within 1 year we'll reach something else. I want to tell you this free trade agreement it's the largest in the world, because it has not only the largest number of countries, but the largest
tens of millions.
We are 1.4 billion population.
That's hundreds of millions.
1.4 billion population, 1.40 something billion population, and 55 countries.
That's almost 20% of the world's
you know that
population.
Africa on the world map is not represented correctly in size. Africa can carry 3 times USA, Africa can carry USA, and Europe and China. I mean, Africa is much bigger than how it looks on the map.
No.
Yes.
Yeah, not a lot of people know about that.
Yeah, but this is a fact.
And why is that?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
So you're saying that proportion, the map that everybody watches, that we've come to know by heart, many of us.
That's too old.
Yeah, we need to expand the dimensions for Africa on that map. Geographically, you're speaking here. Oh.
So I mean that you're talking about 1.4 billion population, the youngest population in the world.
Yes.
The median age, you're talking about 26 to 29 years old. The food basket to the world. Okay, we have hunger, we have poverty, but we have all the resources. So Africa is very important, and the intra-African trading is very important. Let me take you back to the AFCFTA. The African Free Continental Trade Agreement is not only trading in goods, it's trading in services, it's trading in digital transformation, it's women and youth initiative,
yes.
Women and youth empowerment and women and youth economical empowerment. They took time for tariff reduction and non-tariff barriers, tackling non-tariff barriers, which are a lot. And also, not only tariff and non-tariff barriers, but also the rule of origin. And I encourage everyone to go on the website of www.afcfta, au-afcfta.org, and I want anyone to enter on the e-tariff book inside this website of the African Free Continental Trade Agreement, and write any name of any country you want to trade with, and the other country, and the HS code, which is the code of the product you are trading with. And also there is a way to know the name of the product, the HS code. And I want to tell you, hundreds and thousands of products, January 2025, will be traded among Africa with 0 tariff.
That's very good to hear. Very inspiring.
You're talking about 55 countries.
Very inspiring.
So, and who ratified, the countries who ratified the agreement are 47, maybe 48 while we're talking now. This is very important.
Indeed. And by the way, when we talk about our beloved continent, we're not swaying from the topic here, because again, Egypt and South Africa were the voices of our beloved continent at the G20 summit, and any issue that concerns Africans is certainly a concern for us here. Dr. Nevin, dear viewers, allow us to watch a second report.
Sure.
Here about our main topic. It is about Egypt's joining of the Global Alliance Against Hunger, declared, of course, at the G20 summit, and then we'll come back and conclude our episode. Please stay with us.
President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi's participation in the G20 summit meetings held in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, represents an important opportunity for Egypt to exchange views with the host country and the world's most influential economies. This summit is one of the most important G20 summits in light of the unprecedented global political tensions that the world is currently witnessing, most notably the systematic genocide and ethnic cleansing by the Israeli occupation army against the Palestinian people, as well as the ongoing conflict in Sudan, in addition to the Russian-Ukrainian war. The continued war between Russia and Ukraine has also had serious repercussions on global economies, without exception, negatively affecting energy and food supplies, especially since these two countries are a very large source of grain supplies in the world, on which many developing countries depend. The importance of this important international gathering in Brazil, which includes 2/3 of the world's population, and the economies of its members, collectively constitute 90% of global output, stressing that this summit represents an important platform for heads of state and government in light of the large attendance to exchange views through bilateral meetings held by leaders on the sidelines of the summit. Egypt and Brazil agreed on promoting dialogue and understanding through cementing diplomatic relations and holding bilateral meetings and exchanging visits by high-level officials from both countries. That came in the joint declaration which was signed by President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and his Brazilian counterpart Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi highlighted Egypt's commitment to tackling global inequality and hunger, announcing the country's membership in the newly launched Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty, while urging to end the Israeli war on Gaza and Lebanon. This was stated in his speech at the opening session of the G20 summit, which was currently held in Rio de Janeiro and is on social inclusion and the fight against hunger and poverty. The session witnessed the launch of the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty.
Welcome back, and thanks Manel and Rasha again for this report. We're here in the studio with Dr. Nevin Nakhla, Professor of Strategic Management at the AAST. And whilst we were talking while watching the report and listening to it, Dr. Nevin, you told us that you want to give us some sort of breaking news here for our screen. Can you tell us about it?
I want to tell you that the day before yesterday, Egypt signed the PAPS agreement. The PAPS agreement is the Pan-African Payment System Agreement in Africa, under also or within the AFCFTA, the African Union, the African Free Trade Continental Agreement. This PAPS, Pan-African Paying System Agreement, will allow us to trade with Africa with our local currency. And
perfect.
So it means that if, let's say, Kenya is trading with a shilling, they will pay in their bank with a shilling and it will arrive in Egypt with the Egyptian pound. So you are reducing the stress of a lot of
demand for foreign currency.
Yes. You are trading in Africa, within your continent, with your own local money. For example, we get from Africa a lot of tea, a lot of coffee, a lot of cocoa, shea butter, cashew nuts, a lot of
and we have a lot of exports, pharmaceutical exports and others.
Pasta, noodles, a lot of things. So we are going, since the day before yesterday, Egypt became part of the PAPS in the continent. Okay. So this is a breaking news, and this is very
it hasn't yet been officially published.
It is.
Okay.
It is,
now we can consider it official.
But
okay.
It's a breaking news. I mean.
Okay. Thank you for giving it to Nile TV.
Thank you.
Dr. Nevin, what are Egypt's long-term objectives for its continued participation in the G20 summits? The long-term objectives.
The long-term objectives. Our long-term objectives, if we start by eradication of poverty and hunger, Egypt is taking very good steps in this, and we see the Decent Life Initiative, for example, the biggest humanitarian initiative in the world, not only by the money spent, but by the amount of people covered. You're talking about around 60 million population. So infrastructure, you're talking about health care, you're talking about within the health care, you're talking about the children health and
women health
and the women health, and also the kind of food and the quality of food. As we said, Egypt is taking very good care of being a logistic hub and having the food as a logistic hub. Also, we saw that the climate change initiatives and taking care of this file, and we saw also the renewable energy and the transformation to clean and green energy. Also the technology and the innovation in agricultural, in agri and in the industrialization. This is also a very important tool and step. A lot of things. We saw also the new initiative in Egypt, which is beginning, beginning initiative. I adore this initiative very much because it is all about education and awareness. Education and the big distribution of the age from 4 to 6. There are reform programs and programs for this initiative from 6 to 8, another program from 8 to 10. So I mean a lot of education, a lot of training, a lot of health care, a lot of hospitals, clinics in rural areas, water, sanitation, even connectivity with the fiber optics to bridge the gap between the needy areas or the rural areas and the cities. So Egypt is a role model, and we have spent a lot in the economic reform and in the steps for these initiatives.
Finally, Dr. Nevin, Egypt historically and in the modern era for decades has been a leading voice for the South, for the poor, for the oppressed, for the developing countries since the days of NAM, the non-aligned movement.
Yeah.
And so how can Egypt's role evolve, in your view, in G20 meetings to best support the South, the developing world?
I think what's happening right now, the bilateral and the international partnership, this is very important. Also the resource allocation, and also how to invest and where to invest, and also grabbing the attention for the investors, for the foreign investors, and for the opportunities in the South, the opportunities in this region. This is very important. Sometimes you need a little bit of marketing, you need a little bit of telling. No one will know what you have until you say what you have. So this is what is taking place now. By sitting on the same table, by talking about the opportunities in this area and in this region, and by grabbing the attention, and also putting strategic plans and strategies, and putting the deadlines. So the sustainable development and the development taking place is very important, and it is the roadmap taking us to where we want to go.
Where we deserve to be.
Exactly.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nevin Nakhla, the Professor of Strategic Management at AAST, the Arab Academy for Maritime Transport and Science Technology. It's always a great pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Pleasure is
Dr.
mine.
Nevin. And thank you, dear viewers, for watching us. Please stay with Nile TV.